There's nothing like cracking that cellophane and pulling that record out. It just smells great.
Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Non-stop hardcore energy.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Unlike any other.
With your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bod Father.
Man, this stuff rocks.
This is Nick Miller.
And this is Tommy Van Arsdale.
From the Dust Biters. And you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
The views and opinions of the guests do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of BODS Mayhem Hour, its staff, affiliates, or sponsors. Parental discretion is advised. Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I am your host, John the Bod, aka the Bod Father, and as always, I'm bringing you guys and gals awesome interviews. Today it's an honor and a privilege to have Nick Miller and Tommy Van Arsdale from the band Dust Biters, and they have released their debut full-length album entitled Guilt. Also, check out their single Progeny. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'll have me some popcorn after that. Anyway, I want to welcome these guys to the show. How you guys doing today?
Doing good. It's been a long day. I woke up early to do some photo shoots for work, but other than that, it's been a good day.
This debut full-length album, Guilt, is out right now. How good does it feel to have this debut album in the Dust Biters music library finally, guys?
It's great, man. We're really proud of these songs. It was a ton of fun to write them, sort of a interesting process, which we can talk about, but some were the product of the two Nicks, Nick Miller and Nick Kinsley, the singer and guitarist, writing riffs early on, just the two of them. Some of them are songs that took a week to put together, and some are songs that took a couple months to put together. But we have enjoyed writing them and creating the album and translating the sounds that we've had in our heads finally onto a record that we're really proud of, and super happy to be playing these songs live. It's a blast. So I love Guilt. Yeah,
and it's just nice to have the whole one record, to have all of those songs written and recorded and put onto one piece of solid music.
So are you at that point to where you're sick of it and now you want to move on and be like, thank God it's over?
No, not at all. I mean, honestly, I love every single song on that record. I really enjoy performing those songs a lot. But don't get me wrong, I'm the stuff that we're working on is really exciting, and we're doing everything that we can to get it ready so we can perform it out as fast as possible. And we're really hoping to demo those tracks very soon, so that way we can try to get it out by late summer, maybe fall. But I mean, we just released the record in August. I feel like this is right now we're doing our the first real big push with Progeny as our single, having the music video out and stuff like that. I feel like we've barely scratched the surface on pushing the music and getting the songs out there. So I really kind of want to see how much of a response we can get on this record before we start to put it behind us and leave it in the dust that we're biting.
I don't have that sound effect. I will get that soon.
Get those drops.
I'll
here,
get
and then do it now. Here, ready? And go. Insert sound effect here.
What's the nucleus, guys, that still keeps this band together and moving right along?
I'll take this one.
It's the funnest thing we do.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's a blast. We just make each other laugh. I mean, that's the best part. So it's not just like jokes during practice. It's like literally writing parts and jamming. Nick Miller will just do this outrageous 80s riff, and I'll just start cracking up, and he'll be like, oh no, I'm like working on something. I'm like, no, that's staying in. That's great. Or like throwing in cowbell here and there.
Oh.
We just make each other laugh, whether we're driving to a venue or actually playing music. And that, I think that just being friends and getting to spend time with each other, and then the added benefit of a collaborative musical project is what keeps things fun, because we're hanging out. So yeah, we're absolutely musicians and we're serious about what we do. But at the end of the day, I mean, these are three of my best friends. So just the act of playing or being together, talking about music, whether it's our own or someone else's, it's just the most fun time I had in the week.
No cowbell crap song. No cowbell crap song.
It's true.
We all kind of live pretty stressful lives and have crazy jobs and stuff like that. So, I mean, being in the band is just the one day of the week that I really look forward to, that, I get to empty my brain and just be creative and have fun with my friends and stuff. So I feel like it's like if we didn't have the band, we'd all be much sadder, angrier human beings. So it's very much a necessity in our lives at this point.
What's been the most heated conversation that you guys have had over an album or a song that you guys are like, no, that sucks? I mean, what's the most heated ones you guys have talked about? And we got other great questions, folks. We're just trying to.
No, you're good.
That's a great question.
I remember there was a long a heated discussion over the track listing on the record. I remember that went on for a good long time, trying to figure out what order we wanted to play the songs in, and it was just a matter of trying to be like, well, what kind of energy do we want to have going through this? What's going to be our single? How do we want it all to kind of flow together? All of that stuff. But I mean, I don't think we don't ever really like kind of get in like an ego driven argument. It's always just like a creative differences of, like seeing things from a different perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or maybe if Nick Kinsley starts talking about country music, we might veer off into some kind of casting aspersions, but no, I mean, on the whole, it's all good.
Keeping on track with the track listing though of this album, how important was it for the track placing on this? I mean, when did you guys say, okay, this is how it needs to go and this is how it needs to flow?
I remember when I was putting together my idea for like the track listing, it was, we knew that Progeny was going to be our first single, so we wanted that to be around like track 3 or 4, because traditionally your first single is usually around track 3 or 4. And then we had the song Goddamn Guilt, which is, really different than everything else. And, I think that Kinsley really wanted that to be the final track on the record, which we all, that was pretty across the board, like agreed upon. And so then it was just kind of like trying to fit in, like where we wanted certain songs to kind of carry the energy. We didn't want anything to get like too slow on the record to where, like you get to a point in the record that you just, move on to a different band or something else. We wanted you to constantly be kind of pulled into the next song. And we wanted to have some fun with some samples and things like that in between. And I remember calling them palate cleansers. I wanted something to like kind of reset your ears and reset your focus for the next song. So if you were, if somehow you had the attention span to start the record from, the very first track and listen to it all the way to the end, I wanted it to be an experience of some sort. And so like that was kind of the intention. Again, I don't know how many people in the world have actually sat and listened to the record from start to finish, and how many of them just start with the suggested songs that Spotify give them. But there was some intentionality behind the track listing.
We also all grew up listening to records, whether it be physical vinyl or just albums from start to finish. So I think one of the things that was prescient to us when we were talking about the track listing or really just forming an album with these series of songs that we created was the fact that we wanted it to be a coherent listening experience. So much in the vein of progressive rock or even like an album like Songs to the Deaf, where there's a starting point, a journey, and sort of an ending point, or at least a transitional point. That's something that we really felt very passionate about. If we're going to take the time to release an album of songs, let's make it logical. Let's make it make sense and have a flow to it. And I'm really happy that we did that. And I hope people do get a chance to listen to the album from start to finish, not just for that experience, but as Nick mentioned, Goddamn Guilt being the last track. I just love that song. It's very different from the other songs. I don't want that to get lost from someone that maybe loves Gear Evil so much they just keep repeating it, and never go to the end.
So would you say that's your sleeper song on that album?
Yeah, I think it's the least. I think it's the one song that it's so different than everything else on the record that it's. I think if people give that song a track, like they if they give it a chance, they're gonna fall in love with it. It's a really really good song. It's something that I was like really kind of apprehensive about doing, but as we were putting the song together and as we were working on it, because it's very much like a studio written song, that was that we wrote that song and completely different than anything else on the record. And it is the slowest and softest and prettiest song on the record. But if you dig into it and you chew on it for a second, it's catchy. It's got some good hooks into it. The lyrics are deep. And you can spend some time on it and revisit it many times.
Do you feel, guys, that this album had to come out swinging and make a statement for this band?
Yeah, I think maybe not necessarily intentionally, but it definitely, I hope, does. I think Lushed Up is a really great song after the intro to kind of introduce who we are. That's a song that we all love playing. And I think maybe if you were to ask a couple of songs that really encapsulate what we're trying to say musically, I think that's a really good example. And yeah, when we play live, we definitely think about the positioning of that song and others for sure. But we tend to, especially on this album, just write with that sort of energy. And when we play live, that energy is very genuine, and it definitely translates. Those songs really come through. So whether or not it was intentional from the get-go, I think the album hopefully does that. And certainly when we write songs, it's to really push ourselves and to really like try to get that energy and that sort of the impact that we feel into a coherent musical piece.
Yeah, I think I agree with Tommy's statements on that as well. I think our main intention with getting the record out was we just wanted to have something out there so we could go play shows. I just remember the energy being like, we want to have this out before this year, because we really wanted to capitalize on having some music out on the internet and finding a fan base and stuff like that. So hopefully this summer and fall we can get out and play some festivals and play a bunch of shows where prior to the record being out, we were trying to convince people that we had good music. Like, we swear we're writing fun stuff, just please put us on your bill.
How awesome is it to have your debut single Progeny on the Metal Contraband Top 50 Metal chart for 6 weeks straight, and be on there with same charts with bands like Metallica, Motorhead, Tala, Lorna Shore, His Legend, and Obituary?
I mean, honestly, like when we first got like that first week's results of being like the number 4, number 5 most added on both those charts, yeah, I mean, like, I don't think that we were anticipating like even seeing those charts maybe once out of the campaign for Progeny, let alone being added the first week and being that high up on the charts. And then I didn't know who we were going to be slated up against or slated alongside of, and when I think ours came out right when one of the more recent Slipknot songs came out, and we saw that shoot up to number 1, and then we weren't too far back behind it, so it was really really humbling and really, I mean, like, I was in awe and kind of annoying everybody in the group chat about it, but it was really cool to see our name like right on the same list as all those other bands, and then and for a couple of them to see our name above those bands, which granted they probably have been on the chart a lot longer than we did. I mean, even that was kind of blew me away a little bit. And then also just to see the amount of radio stations around the country. I mean, there's a radio station in Anchorage that picked us up. So like, to know that, people are playing our music in Anchorage, Alaska, that's pretty awesome. It's a pretty good feeling.
Yeah, it's just felt fucking awesome. We look up to all those bands you mentioned. I mean, he is Legends, like hometown heroes for me. I'm from Wilmington, North Carolina. So those guys are great. We love their music, and it just feels awesome. We do this for fun, but at the same time, just even being mentioned in the same sentence as them is like pretty surreal.
You know, Nick, I don't blame you for like boasting that, man, because that's something to be really freaking proud of, because some of these bands have been doing this 20, 30 plus years, have not even charted anything. So for you guys to do this, that's a very huge accomplishment.
Thank you. I think the gravity of it is like, it's still settling in, because this is all very new for us to, I mean, bands that we've all played in before, I don't think we've ever even attempted to try to, find radio stations to play our music and things like that. So this kind of attention and this kind of response is very new. So it's a feeling I got to get used to.
How long did it take to write and record this album? And when did you know that this was a special group to see all these songs just start flowing?
I mean, we started writing it right before COVID. We started writing riffs for it, me and Kinsley sitting on my couch. And then probably right before COVID started shutting everything down was when Tommy came in and sat in session with us on the drums. And then, I mean, we were pushing that release date. We knew that we wanted to have it out before the end of August. So, I mean, I think that we finished up recording at the end of June, early July, I think. Tommy, you might remember better than I do, but I mean,
no, that's right.
It was right up to, I mean, like, we had it finished, approved of the final mixes, and submitted within like 2 weeks of each other at the most. So
that's right. It happened. Writing the songs was a obviously longer process, but it did start with the two Nicks getting together with those initial riffs, and then coming together as a group, getting Bryan in the mix, and then us being able to, as a 4-piece, begin writing together. That's really when, the proverbial magic happened, when we really had that like solidified bottom end. And then just Bryan as a personality, he just really rounded us out so well. So the four of us hit the ground running, and were able to start to work together. And it's interesting from our perspective, the songs that we wrote toward the latter half of putting the album together versus the beginning part, and how they begin to showcase more of who we are as musicians, but also I think who we are as collaborators. So for instance, Progeny being the last song that we wrote for the album, I think we really felt like we were beginning to be honest with who we wanted to be in this band as a group. And then once we got into the recording process, that was just a blast. It did take some time for sure, but working with Alex Lackner was just like having another brother in the group. And quite frankly, he is a musician. He's an accomplished musician in his own right. So what he brought to the table was not just extensive engineering and perfectionism, but also a really creative music vocabulary that you can hear on the album and you're not even going to know it. Just the contributions he made to push me to do a fill again and again and again and go faster than what I was capable of. But it's just him coaching me through and saying, I know you can do this. Like, I know you can hear this. Let's make those two meet. Nick Miller, Nick Kinsley, Bryan are all going to say the same thing. Just having him come in and push us and work with us and understand the sounds that we were trying to get out onto the album was instrumental. So everything started to happen very quickly. And even though there was some work in retaking and a few overdubs, like once that process began, it was only us that were limiting it by our own schedules and availability. If we could have had a week from start to finish to just track, I think we could have gotten it all done.
How was working with Pavement Entertainment, guys? What was your thoughts when they said, hey, we want to work with you guys?
Oh, I mean, they're great. Tim King, he's not only an awesome musician, but I mean, he's just really, really smart when it comes to this stuff. And I mean, there was a lot of me trying to slow him down and being like, can you please explain that a little bit better so I have a better grasp on what you're doing? And then asking him a week later to re-explain it again, because I'm still trying to understand what he was doing. I mean, to see these reports come in from him, I mean, clearly they're good at what they do, because I mean they kind of took the reins on a lot of this promotional campaign, and all we did was try to, I do marketing professionally, and I was just trying to be as supportive to the campaign as possible, and trying to make sure that we were doing supplemental content, and also like trying to fill some gaps here with like different kind of like outreach and people, if I have contacts at different places to do interviews and things like that. But for the most part, I mean, they did 98% of it. And yeah, I mean, I know that I saw recently that they posted that they're actually going to start offering these services to bands. So you can actually solicit them and see if they want to like help support your band and your music. So if anybody out there is listening and they're curious and they want to try and get some attention for their projects, I definitely recommend hitting them up because one, they're really, really nice people and they're really passionate. It's a label ran by musicians. I mean, like Tim's currently in a death metal band that, like focuses on 90s style death metal. So you're not going to shock this guy with any style of music that you're going to bring to the table.
Yeah. Other than Nick, who's, works in marketing and is a wizard, we're a bunch of like punk rock hardcore kids. So it's like trying to apply these like, ideals of like marketing and putting yourself out there and what it takes to kind of reach these audiences. They really were instrumental in helping us to understand what they were going to help us to do and what we could do to help them as well. So it was a great process. I mean, I would work with them again in a heartbeat.
So am I hearing some Misfits, NoFX, some, Rancid fans in this group that I'm talking with? Is that what I'm hearing, guys? Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah. Definitely. If Nick Kinsley was on here, he would definitely be the guy that would be like pointing out all of those. He comes from a much more like punk and hardcore background. So he's the one that's like really, really into those bands. Well, we're all definitely fans. I mean, that was his bread and butter. That was his heart and soul growing up was punk. So it's fun because, I have like a more like a technical death metal grindcore kind of background, and he has more like a punk and hardcore. So when we're writing riffs, I really do kind of have to step back and trust his like opinion on like the punk sounding riffs, and just be like, that stuff better than I do. So I'm just going to play along with what you have written. Because I don't know. I like some of that stuff. I don't know if it's a good punk riff or not. I'm just kind of hoping.
What led the track Progeny to be the first song released for you guys? What was it about that song that said that's got to be our first single that comes off this album?
I think we all just kind of agreed that was our better song on the record. And then I think the reason why we decided to like push it the hardest was we came up with the concept for the music video. And because I think we were originally going to do Lushed Up as our first single, and
yeah,
we had a concept for a music video for that. And then when the day came to film it, I forget what happened, but for some reason we couldn't get the location or we couldn't get the videographer to do it. And so it wound up needing to be rescheduled. And then the concept for Progeny and Progeny's music video, like kind of just started to fall into place. And, Matt, the guy that did that directed it and shot it and edited it, he just kind of fell in love with the concept for it and offered to do it for us over the summer when he had some downtime. So I think it was just kind of like, well, that was one of our favorite songs collectively as a band. So, we'd be super proud to have that be the one that gets a visual to accompany it. And so it was like, all right, well, let's make sure that that's kind of like the main focus when we start pushing the record, because it might take a little while for the video to be ready and get out there, but at least we'll have made people familiar with the song, so that way when the video drops they'll know the music.
Definitely. Yeah, I think both the music and the imagery of the lyrics are really powerful, and once that music video concept solidified, we were like, okay, this really is going to be something that I think if you have just one song to check out or 3 minutes to check out this music video, this is a really good opportunity to get a slice of what we're trying to communicate.
Was there a track that you guys are working on for this album that totally ended up sounding different than it was intended to? Was there one that just kept changing or no?
Progeny. I know that Progeny had a couple like transitions that Alex helped us like smooth out a little bit. Love Song definitely had a lot of this was a love song is the full title, but I mean that song didn't have a tremolo effect in it. It didn't have strings in it. There's a couple like syncopated things that we do with the drums on the track that I don't think we originally had written before we went into record. I know that was also a challenging song for Kinsley for vocals, and I know he tried a lot of different things out when he was in the studio for that. So I think that was probably one of the songs that, you know, outside of Goddamn Guilt, which we completely wrote in the studio, one of the songs that, you know, we went in with a version of it and it kind of came out completely different. You know, it's still the same structure and it's still the same song, and we perform it the way that we had originally written it, just because there's some effects on there that just too complicated without having a backing track, and I don't want to tap dance on pedals the entire time I'm playing the song. But yeah, I mean, that in my opinion, I think that'd be the song that probably had like the most changes to it in the studio.
Yeah, the bridge itself, I think we wrote like the day before we went into the studio. We had an idea for the bridge and it worked really well, but that's a great example of Alex coming in and saying, let's try it, a couple of different things. And after we did, we just kind of pushed it to the point that the bridge that you hear on the album, you know, just kind of clicked for us. We were like, that's it. Let's lay it down. This is how the song's going to be. It kind of just like was a bolt of lightning at that point.
You know, I know these are your babies, but are there any tracks standing out more to the both of you than any right now on this album?
I love and adore Lushed Up. That's one track that I wish that people would chew on a little bit more. It's a complicated song and it has a lot going on and a ton of layers. So I think that to the non-musician or the non-like, you know, guitar obsessed, you know, music listener, it could be a little much. But I think after like a listen or two, you'll find all the pockets and all the grooves in that song. And, you know, I think the vocals on it are really catchy. There's so much ear candy going on between the drums and the bass and the guitar. You know, it's I feel like it really teeters on that line of almost being too much, but just enough to keep your attention from start to finish.
I agree. I love the drums in Lushed Up. It's one of my favorite songs to play live. But I also adore like the chorus of Creature Man. Just makes me want to get in a van with my buddies and like careen down like a road in California, you know. And Progeny's got some awesome parts. The end of Dear Evil. There's just a lot of moments, you know, that I look forward to hearing when we're playing. Like I get so excited. I'm like, oh, we're coming up to this. I can't wait to see Miller solo, you know. And so it's like it's exciting moments for me. I mean, each song, as you said, could be my baby, you know, but at the same time, there's just parts of them that really just, you know, make me feel really excited. So, and tough question.
Pray for Me is still one of those songs that like, I think it has one of the simplest verses that we ever wrote, but it's still one of my favorite verses that we've ever written. It has like a very Motorhead vibe to it. And that's one of those songs that we wrote in like a 2-week span. I had like 2 or 3 practices and we put that song together. And then I think one of my favorite, I don't know, like trivia questions about that song is we didn't even discover that we wrote that in an odd time signature. Like the last breakdown of the song is written in an odd time signature. And I think it took us being in the studio with Alex and Alex being like, hold on a second, and like kind of counting it out with us and being like, oh, that's why things aren't fitting right. And we had to like kind of adjust that, like, and it was just like, oh yeah, sorry, that's my bad. I tend to have a tendency of not accounting for like counting when I write riffs, and I'm usually relying on Tommy, and I think Tommy just went along with that riff and it wound up being in a 5/4.
Yeah, it just grooves. I mean, that's the whole thing. So when we're writing, we're just going with the feeling for sure. And then the next practice, when we have to go back and remember what we did, then it's like, hold on a second, this actually is in 5/4. Okay, so when we go to like put this to a met, it's, you know, it's almost like we're pursuing the feeling and then breaking it down and kind of analyzing it and editing is when we realize the quirks that the madness that we've done. And we got to play the stuff that that we were just messing with. It's like, okay, now I got to remember this. Now I have to actually play it. You know, it's a fun exercise.
I want to ask this before I forget this. When people are out at a store and they see this album and they pick it up versus anything else that they could have picked up, would you say this is going to give them a full earful of ear candy because of what's on this compared to, say, others that are out there? Are they going to get like, whoa, I never seen this coming, or wow, they've got this on this song, and not typical 1,000 miles an hour songs? You know what I'm saying? Like one of those, heard that song, keep moving on.
No doubt. And I think that's evident in the comparisons that people have drawn for us. So it's all over the map. I mean, we've heard Against Me, At the Drive-In, Motorhead, Glassjaw. I mean, Miller, it's, you can.
Every Time I Die.
Every Time
you get
I
that
Die.
a lot. The Bronx.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wow.
And so I think, you know, we love all these bands and we're definitely obviously influenced by them. But I think each song might have elements of those artists and others, obviously. And as Miller mentioned, just having things like strings and piano and auxiliary percussion. We wrote an album that has elements of the music that we love so much. And a huge part of that is the ear candy of a studio recording. So it's tough to say whether we like playing live or writing or being in the studio. But I can tell you that we all are very passionate about using the studio as an instrument. And hopefully we did a good job of making the songs interesting to listen to through not just the music, but the movement of the music and kind of like the air around the songs, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think one of the coolest compliments that like we've ever received was, you know, somebody said that you guys write music that make me want to listen to the next part. Oh. Like, it makes me wonder what the next part's going to be. Which I thought that was a really, really cool compliment, and it made me really happy and confident in my writing abilities because so many bands, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit, you know, a lot of bands, like you hear, you know, the first 30 seconds of a song and you know what that song's going to sound like. You hear the first 2 songs of a record, you know what that record's going to sound like. And I like the fact that, you know, like you can start any of our songs and there's a good chance that you're probably not going to be able to predict what our bridge is going to sound like or what the end of the song is going to sound like, or even where we're going to go with the chorus. And at the very least, I know that if you make it through the verse, you're going to want to know what the chorus sounds like, and or you're going to want to know what we're going to do in the bridge. And I think that that's extremely important nowadays, you know, when people don't have an attention span to sit through a record, let alone trying to get them to listen to an entire song from start to finish. So if you know, maybe our ADD style of writing will keep your attention to a whole song.
Metallica, you listen and you listen good. Do not disappoint me on 72 seasons because I'm your biggest fucking fan. You know that. Okay, Eternal was great. Suicide, the second one, great. Do not disappoint me. Trust me.
Second that.
Which, by the way, those tracks were really good. I still listen to them. I'm really happy with what they're putting out right now.
For sure.
What amazes me is that band has adapted. And I don't care what anybody says, oh, they sold out. No, they adapted. Okay?
Yeah.
They knew, they saw where everything was going with music. They adapted. Because when grunge came in, listen, folks, it's over for metal. And I hate to say that. Some metal bands are still kicking ass. But you had more of these grunge fans that was eating it alive, you know? So they adapted. They did exactly what I would have done it. I'm sure you guys would have done it too.
Yeah,
for sure. And they're still loving what they do, and they're being genuine. I mean, Miller and I got to see them like right up front at Lollapalooza, and just like at the very end, like seeing James just stand there with the guitar, looking up at the fireworks. I mean, that he didn't have to do that. I mean, he's doing that because he is taking in the moment. I mean, he still, I think, is awestruck by the support of the fans, and it's genuinely received on both sides, I think.
And I think they still write to challenge themselves. You know, where they could have wrote music that they knew that they could play without having to try. but they're writing I mean, I was very, very fortunate to catch one of the pop-up shows when they did like that pop-up show at Metro here in Chicago. And I mean, one of the jokes that James made when he came out was, he's like, did you guys have to rehearse before you came here too? Like, it was like one of those things where he's just like, because this stuff is still really difficult for us to play, and we still have to like make sure that we're on point for these songs. And you can tell when they're kind of frustrated if they're, like not nailing a part. And I mean, like even at Lollapalooza, like they were having a blast on stage, but you could see when each one of them had to stop and go, okay, I have to pay attention while I'm playing this part.
I was fortunate to get to see them on the Hardwired to Self-Destruct tour in Louisville, Kentucky, the sold out one. And I've said it a million times. I cried for the first two songs that they played live.
They're still fantastic live. Mm-hmm. They put on a great show, and it's so evident in a lot of bands that have been around this long that the effort kind of starts to dwindle, and the amount of like help that they like they tend to employ, whether it be backing tracks or ghost members of the band that are on stage that you have no idea what they're doing or who they are. They're just there to help out with backing vocals or pianos or something like that. And I mean, Metallica is still just those dudes on stage playing their songs to their best abilities, and they're still jamming and running around and being crazy people on stage. I mean, even Lars is standing up and getting the crowd hyped and slamming, and even though he doesn't have a ride cymbal, which is so weird, I never noticed that until Tommy pointed it out to me.
You listen here and you listen again, Metallica. Get on my podcast. I guarantee it'll be the best interview you guys ever had.
Yeah, I second that again. Yes.
Tommy's on here with me, man. Tommy's my man.
Let's do it, man. I got you.
Any songs that did not make this album we can see on another album, EP, or just a standalone single from you guys, possibly, or no?
We're working on that right now.
Oh, never mind. There you go.
Yeah. I mean, I think Kinsley might have had like some material in his pocket, but nothing that was like materialized into a full song. I think he just had like some riffs that he was ready to start working on as soon as we got out of the studio. I mean, like that's the one thing that we're really fortunate about with this band is that, I mean, like there is no, like the well is overfilled with, riffs and material to work on. And I mean, like we're constantly having to like stop and be like, wait, what happened to that song that we were working on? Let's make sure that we don't let that go away just because we got excited about this new one. And I mean, I think that the one thing that we all kind of are really crossing our fingers for is that this is something that we can do professionally, because all we really desperately want is just more time to spend on making music. I think our biggest frustration is that because of our professional lives, we have one night a week that we get to do this. And granted, we squeeze as much as we can out of that one night a week. But I mean, if we even had one more day out of that week, I think you'd see an album a year out of us.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Absolutely. Any creative will tell you that when you put down a project, it takes a minute to pick it back up and be into the same mindset. If you're lucky, you might not be able to get back into that mindset, at least in the next time you sit down to work on it. So Miller's absolutely right. I mean, even if we had another day a week just to get back into the writing process, I think we would be fairly prolific. The songs that we're working on now, we have about 3 or 4 that are almost ready to go. And we're really excited about these. They're a lot of fun. And I think it picks up very well where Progeny, being our most recent song on the Guilt album that we recorded, it really picks up where that kind of like musicality and maybe neurosis left off. So we're really excited to get these demoed and to hopefully then take them, shop them around, and see if someone's interested in helping us to get into a studio setting and really dedicate time to making them sound good.
A lot of bands go the EP route, but you guys just released a full-length album. Does full lengths at this time suit this band better than an EP?
No, it was what we wanted. We're a bunch of old guys that grew up listening to records. And I think that some of the most important records to me, and I think that most important to music as a whole, were records that were great from start to finish with intention, and they were thoughtful as a package, not just how do we get you to listen to these 3 or 4 songs on the record and then everything else is filler. And I mean, there's just so many great iconic records, and I think that those are the things that stay with music history. And while singles are great, and some bands will be remembered for their 1 or 2 hits that they had. I mean, albums are remembered for changing things. Albums are remembered for being what set the navigation for like the next era of music. And I think that to all of us, I think it was just really important that we at least made that statement of what we were doing as a band. As I don't want you to just hear 1 or 2 tracks from us and try to make your mind up, especially being a brand new band. Like, we really wanted you to, like, if we were going to give you us, we wanted to give you all of us, and not just, small little snippets to let you draw conclusions. It's like, well, no, this is the band. And this is what we're doing, and it's just going to get better, and it's just going to get more musically technical. It's just going to get more thoughtful. Now, granted, like, from a marketing standpoint, it's probably not like the smartest thing for us to have done. But I don't think that was like our main concern at the time. Like, now we can kind of make that shift. Now we can think about doing singles and EPs and focusing more of like putting campaigns around, just releasing a song or releasing 3 or 4 songs together in a package, or maybe like even trying to do a split. We had a label reach out from Texas that does, all they want to do is release, old school punk live recordings. So like there, I feel like there's an opportunity for us to do something cool with that. But yeah, I mean, like, I think it was just really important to all of us, when we all kind of sat down, we're just like, how do we want to go about doing this? And I brought up the strategy that is the modern strategy of releasing music, which is put out a single, music video, play through, lyric video, move on to the next single, music video, play through video, lyric video. It was just like, I think we all just want to do a full record and just have that out. And that's what we went for.
The album was recorded, mixed, and produced by Alex Lackner, who's helped out, I guess, with Lazarus AD and Repentance. How was working with him on this? Did he get something out of you guys, possibly, man, that nobody else might have gotten out of y'all? Maybe?
No doubt. As I mentioned earlier, just recording drums with him was so much fun, because he basically had a mobile studio. So he brought all of his equipment to our studio and set up baffles around my drums and tuned the room with his mics. So it was, from the foundation, a really amazing experience, because we were recording in our home, not in our home. The studio's not in our home, but the studio, our studio being like our home turf. And so the environment was there. Alex was incredibly perceptive with the sounds that we were telling him we wanted to get on this record, and he helped us to get there. So none of us are engineers. I mean, we've all recorded very DIY in the past. I think Miller and I especially, years ago in different bands, just using like a simple DAW and maybe a couple of mics or whatever. But to have someone that we would say, this is the type of reverb that we want, this is the type of snare drum that I want. He, being a musician, was able to understand the words and then articulate that in sound. So working with him was an absolute pleasure. And as I mentioned before, he's a friend. So he was like a brother, helping us through the writing process, knowing how I play, how I write. Same thing with the other guys. So he was able to kind of push us to get the performances out as well. Whereas if we were doing this ourselves, or maybe with a different engineer or producer that didn't understand us to that intimate level, they might have taken us in a different direction that didn't necessarily get the honest performance and material out on the album.
And I mean, just to add on to what Tommy was saying is, we actually were trying to work with a different engineer, but due to COVID, we were working with some newer systems. What was kind of happening is bands were either going into local studios, recording the tracks raw, and then sending them out to producers and engineers to engineer and mix remotely, or like in our case where we tried to track everything and then we sent it out to an engineer to mix remotely. And because of the disconnect, they just couldn't really quite grasp what we were trying to get. And we spent a lot of time, almost kind of like micromanaging over phone calls and being like, can you really pull this tone out more? Or like, this is really, really messy and it's meant to sound a lot cleaner. Can you cut out? I know that there's a lot of noise in between, but that unfortunately that's the tone that my head makes. So, I really need you to like clean up some of the spaces and stuff between it. And it wound up like just almost kind of being like disheartening a little bit, like demotivating a little, because we started to feel like, like, oh man, are we going to be able to capture this right? And when we met Alex, I kind of expressed that to him, like, hey, we're getting really frustrated with trying to get this right. Would you be willing to just come out and like just hear us at a practice and let us know what your thoughts are? And I think one of the main reasons why we decided to work with him was to see, song as we went through our set list, like we would see like his smile slowly get bigger, and then at the end of our set, he was just like, people need to hear this. He's like, I genuinely want to record you because I want people to hear your music. And, I've always had a philosophy. I mean, like I'm covered in a lot of tattoos, and I mean, everybody except Tommy is covered in tattoos in our band. And, I've always had a philosophy that if a tattoo artist is willing to do your tattoo as work, like he'll just do it for a set rate, then he's not the tattoo artist that you want to go to. If a tattoo artist gets excited about the project that you bring to them, then that's who you want to pay whatever dollar amount that they ask for, because they're going to give you the coolest, most effort on that project. And, like, I think that was one of the main reasons why we got really excited to work with Alex is, not only was he excited to work with us, he got what we were trying to do almost better than we did, because he had the objective ear where, like we were all kind of listening to our band from, in front of our amp or behind the drum set or, behind the microphone. And we really only got like a very boxed in version of what our band would sound like to ourselves. And he got it like right away. He was like, I can get what you guys are going for. I know what you're trying to do. And this is something that I want to do. So if you want to work with me, I would love to do this. And here's how I'll make it work. And so like, we were very, very lucky to have been introduced to him at the time that we did. And for him to have the availability to work with us in the way that he did, because like Tommy said, he brought all of his studio stuff to our rehearsal space, which was funny. When you were talking, Tommy, it reminded me that, and I don't think I'm breaking any news here, but Harm's Way was getting ready to, they were do pre-production for their record, and we share a rehearsal space with Harm's Way. And I remember we were kind of battling for time in our rehearsal space because they had to leave. They were being flown out to go and spend, I think, like 2 months or something like that in the studio space that Metal Blade Records was paying for. And they're like, guys, we got to rehearse. And we're like, we're recording. I don't know what we can tell
you. But Alex is a real dude. I mean, our last mini tour started in Chicago at Forever Death Fest at Beat Kitchen. He was at the show. So he stands by us, and he's our, like I said, he's our brother. So working with him was a genuine experience, like sharing collaboration with another artist that we respect. It was seamless. We would do it again.
So breaking news, when I get Metallica on my show, Tommy's going to get his first tattoo, and it's going to be a BODS Mayhem logo.
Right there.
No, that's
or right here.
No. Wait, no.
Oh, okay.
No. Bad Tommy.
It's like a curse. I don't know what I can get away with.
Who did the artwork for this album, guys?
Obscurest Vinyl is what he goes by. So if you go on Instagram and you look up Obscurest Vinyl, we actually found him through Fiverr. We were just looking at different Fiverr artists, and we found him, and he had like some really cool kind of collage art styles that he had. We didn't really even discover until after we were already in conversations with him to do it that he had this like crazy following on Instagram because he does these just outrageous vintage record covers. Like he like kind of does these reimaginations of like old like 50s and 40s records, and they're usually very very perverse jokes. But apparently he has like this huge following, and we had already solicited him and he had agreed because we shared the record with him, and not only did he like the music, but when we told him, like, yeah, we're kind of, these are some of the bands that we're into, so if you like those kind of bands and that kind of art style and stuff like that, like that would be like really in sync with what we're doing. And he just was like, yes, fuck yes, I want to do this, yes, send me everything you got, I'm willing to do it. And he was nothing but awesome to work with. He did probably way more work than what he asked us to pay for. And I, to this day, I still try to share as much as I can of his content because he's a great artist. And I think that, if anybody is looking for somebody that's creative and will do something that's out of the box, I highly recommend him.
Do you still have a go-to album or song that you find yourselves going back to and listening to from time to time? And I know you guys have had a lot of music growing up, and I know you still have a lot of music today. But do you have that one go-to album that you cannot kick out?
My favorite artist by a mile is Cardiacs, and their album "Sing to God" is probably my favorite of theirs. But every time I revisit it, just through the music and the lyrics and the production, it gives me something new.
Shape of Punk to Come by Refused. I just adore that album. It's just one of those records that I can I can put on from start to finish, and it still puts me in a great mood. I try to go and see them anytime that they come to town. I love that band.
The $1 million question, and I know I've seen some $1 million questions asked, but this is really the $1 million question. If you could be a member in an iconic band and play one of their legendary shows, which band would it be and what show? Bam.
I mean, do I get all the talent?
Probably early 2000s, Queens of the Stone Age with Dave Grohl, and I'd play the Glockenspiel if they'd have me.
Oh.
Whatever. Just that era, that music and those people. I think it would be an incredible experience.
Man, I mean, you're talking about, I feel like from my perspective is like, what would be one of the coolest experiences for me to perform? And, my immediate thought would be to the first time Slipknot got asked to headline Ozfest, when they were originally just an opening band that slowly worked their way up to eventually being the headliners. And that first night that they got to headline it in front of an insane packed festival that was Ozfest, and knowing that they were setting couches on fire and body slamming each other through drum sets and stuff like that, I'm sure that was just an insane performance to do.
All right, Nick and Tommy, how can folks stay in touch with you guys? Buy this new debut full-length album entitled Guilt from Dust Biters. How can they do that, guys?
You can
dustbitersband.com. Please go to the website, dustbitersband.com. That is where our store lives. You can get the singles on a 7-inch. You can get the album on a cassette tape and on CD, which, fun note that we haven't really been talking about. We actually snuck in some different samples onto the CD and the cassette tape that aren't on the digital versions, just so that way we wouldn't get in trouble through Spotify and iTunes. So if you pick up the physical copies of the records, you actually get a slight variation of what the record sounds like. The songs are all the same. The songs all sound fantastic and exactly how they do on Spotify, but there's some different samples and stuff at the beginning of the record.
Before I let you guys go, would you care to do a promo for my show?
Of course.
This is Nick Miller.
And this is Tommy Van Arsdale.
From the Dust Biters, and you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Everybody stick around. We got some great stuff coming up, and you only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour. Please get out and check out our Facebook page. It has our podcast link and our YouTube link. You definitely want to subscribe to that YouTube link because I'm at $9.95, and every time I get to $9.96, YouTube's like, psh, and they kick me back. Get me over that 1,000 mark, guys, gals. Come on, help me. Also, get out and check out Dust Biters' debut EP, or debut full-length album, I should say. EP's a bad word around here. Entitled Guilt. Get out and check out that full-length album, Entitled Guilt, and check out single Progeny. Give this band a fair shot if you like rock, punk rock stuff, a little mixture of everything. You'll dig this band. So, Nick, Tommy, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And this was a great, great interview.
Thanks, man.
Thank you for having us.
Not a problem.
You're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.